Nice to see you.
We're here talking to Fossil at a marketing innovation conference. So
no, the irony.
The irony of it is great, but you guys have done some really cool stuff with Star Wars, and there's a lot of things that I think the crowd would really like to understand about what Fossil's doing from a marketing innovation standpoint. But let's start really quick. Tell me about your career, where you've been, and how you got to Fossil.
Yeah. Well, nice to see everybody. I'm Courtney Hanson. I'm the Global Director of Marketing Strategy at Fossil Group, which is actually a really fun thing to be able to say, because this role has really been a kind of full circle career moment for me. I actually grew up on the agency side of the business, and one of the Fossil Group brands, Michelle Watches, was the very first pitch that I ever gave about 15 some odd years ago. And we lost the pitch. So it's a bit of a redemption moment for me to get the role and be able to lead the marketing strategy across all of our owned and licensed brands globally. So as I said, my career has really been focused on the agency side of things. I've had the great opportunity to work across a number of luxury brands in the automotive and fast casual space, including Lexus. I worked across 7-Eleven and a number of brands in the convenience category, as well as technology, supporting Dell. So I've had a wild ride to get here, worked across a number of industries, but for me, what I really love about marketing and advertising is that it takes a sum total of a number of parts. There's no one person who can do it all, and I get really fired up with all of the collaboration that happens.
Cool. And I'm Jay Wolff. I work at KERV. It's an AI video technology company, so shout out Melanie for using the word AI. But we're really excited to just be here, sit down with Courtney, and learn a little bit more about Fossil. So you're at a heritage brand, a legacy brand, a brand that most people would say it's a little more old school than new school. You also have e-commerce and retail. You've got a lot of things going on. So can you share some kind of strategies you use to incorporate both commerce and retail, and how you're attacking both when you have completely different objectives?
Yeah, we have so many different ways to be able to buy our products. But we do have a really rich heritage that we get to lean on. And actually this year is our 40th year anniversary. So looking forward to some celebrations on that front soon in the fall. But our strategies have really shifted over the last year. Last fall marked our very first brand campaign in 40 years. So that was a moment in time where we shifted from product-led strategy that was accessories specific, watches, leathers, and jewelry, to a more holistic brand story. And so storytelling has really been central to everything that Fossil does. We've got, again, that really rich history that we lean into in the vintage-inspired accessory space, and thankfully now is the right time to capitalize on it. Gen Z is all in on all things vintage-inspired, so it's a really exciting moment for us.
So playing to that, what are some moments or milestones that everybody should know that you guys have recently kind of untapped into?
Yeah. Well, I wish this was 2 weeks from now, because we are launching our next iteration of our campaign that we'll be able to talk about then. But over the past year, our Made for This campaign is really all about empowering our core consumer to incorporate time well spent, which is a really refreshing take on what we have kind of been having to experience in lockdown over the past 4 years. So it's resonated really well. We couple that with limited edition products and collaborations, like you mentioned, Star Wars, and use those collaboration points as opportunities to introduce our brand to new affinity segments or new consumers that have maybe Fossil hasn't appealed to them due to that vintage inspired, but we've got some other products that might might resonate.
Yeah, Gen Z and millennials come to mind. How do you bring them in? So let's play on that for innovation, because we're at a marketing innovation conference. Can you tell me kind of how you're innovating at Fossil and kind of what are the things to look out for on the marketing front?
Yeah, we are at a huge time of transformation at Fossil Group. Operationally, one of the very first projects that I took on was a global media AOR consolidation. So again, very humbling to sit on that side of the table after being agency side my career. But that consolidation effort meant that we were moving all of our investment and all of our global initiatives under one house. So now we have much more cohesive way of going to market across all of the 25 countries within which we have distribution. Aside from the consolidation, our innovation really happens on, again, the way that we are approaching our campaigns. So moving away from product and individual attributes to how we're talking to the consumers and putting our consumer at the center of everything that we do.
Are you using TikTok in strategies?
TikTok.
How do you use TikTok right now?
I mean, how don't you use TikTok?
Can you teach me how to use it?
I can do my best. But yeah, TikTok is really core to driving that cultural relevance. So we have brand campaigns that we use to launch key moments more on the upper funnel. We have a really integrated influencer strategy that we use throughout the funnel as we talk about that kind of condense shopping behavior that happens in social. So yeah, it's TikTok all the time at Fossil.
I was going to say, so shoppable advertising, I think at McCormick, right? How do you make content more shoppable? We talked about retail media. So let's talk about shoppable ads. Fossil's like the prototypical brand to be able to buy stuff from your TV or from a video or from content. How are you guys approaching shoppable media, shoppable video? What are the strategies that you're trying to deploy at Fossil?
We have recently started testing shoppable TV. I've really found that it works best after a really strong flight of your 30-second, 15-second CTV. Your shoppable TV driving that engagement performs a bit better once you've kind of seeded that awareness. And aside from shoppable TV, again, very heavily engaged with our social channels. So we have a significant amount of investment across Meta, Pinterest, TikTok, Snapchat. Snapchat has really been central to our newest campaign where we're debuting some AR try-on strategies. And again, hoping to better equip our consumers to shop in the way that they want to engage with our brand.
So another hot topic is AI. And you're not going to only hear it from me, even though I'm pushing it right now. But how does Fossil leverage AI in your strategies, right? And what are the one or two things that you're going to use AI for in your business to move things forward?
Yeah, we work in agile pods at Fossil Group, and so I'm fortunate to participate in kind of our beta group, our AI agile pod, and that's a cross-functional group that's made up of web dev, SEO teams, our product program marketers, and our studio production. And so we have started testing AI mainly for product landing page or product detail page web copy. We also participate in the Google Gemini for Workspace Alpha. So maybe not the sexiest way to use AI, but being able to have all of my notes taken, my call summaries done is exceptionally helpful from an operational standpoint. Where I hope that we go, Fossil has internal creative capabilities. We've got really fantastic talent internally that creates all kind of beautiful creative. Now with a more robust media plan, we have a much heavier lift to version out all of that creative to put it into market. So everything from translations to resizing, we're starting to identify partners that can alleviate, namely in utilizing AI to make that an easier lift.
Yeah, I think the greatest part about it is there's a lot of unknowns and you get to figure it out.
Yes.
Lucky you.
Yes, testing.
So let's talk about measurement, because I think Lizzie and Melanie were up here talking about measurement before. How are you measuring the success of Fossil? How do you know your advertising and marketing strategies worked? And how would you guide the audience and how Fossil's doing things?
Yeah, well, our success measurement really depends on the objective, right? So we measure success in a number of ways. We have MMM that provides us some sort of a guidance on what kind of revenue we can attribute, and a media channel mix allocation. We are working on innovating that equation specifically to be able to add brand driving attributes now that, again, we've shifted to be more brand-centric advertising. We are incorporating in-store foot traffic lift studies based on our programmatic out-of-home that we have in market. Of course, we're like up to our eyeballs in GA4 and Salesforce data. So one of my kind of core projects over the next year is to really wrap our arms around all of the different data sets that we have and identify the best way to ultimately tie our brand driving tactics into our revenue driving strategies. Does
Fossil invest in linear or CTV or OTT?
In CTV, yes. Not so much linear. We are starting to get more into that channel. I did a heavy amount of investment in those channels in previous lives, but for Fossil, we're really finding the best way to reach our audience is through more social. In new fronts and upfronts this year, we heard all about buying social the way you buy TV, and that's an approach that we have really embraced.
Like an upfront? So you're investing like an upfront?
Exactly.
And you're using video as a strategy, just like linear TV, like a day part almost?
I would say less like a day part and more in a cross-segment categorization. And so we have a number of different personas within our consumer. We call the Feel Good Collective. And so depending on the persona that we are pursuing, we segment our video strategy according to the consumer.
Interesting. One of my favorite lines is "Prime time is you time." There's no more prime time. It's whenever you sit in front of the TV to watch your episode of whatever it is, Ozark or whatever.
Well, to that note, we one of the ways that we have innovated in our media approach is really getting out of the weeds of the drive to the bottom on the performance media and pulling up, right? So I mentioned out of home, we are doing CTV and we're doing more of those upper funnel social because we find that is really the lean in time. We're even incorporating print and see it perform exceptionally well in our MMMs. And I think it's indicative of where the industry is. That's been so bottom heavy and last click attribution revenue focused for so long. With brand storytelling, you really need to pull up.
I'm going off script, but sorry about this. Is Fossil data heavy? Do you use a lot of data in your strategies? Yeah, we do. We're fortunate to have really robust data sets internally, and we're only building upon that. So we run our own brand panels, our surveys that go out. So we have a really thorough understanding of who our consumer is. And we're continuing to fortify our tech stack through CDP. Again, a lot of new capabilities thanks to our global media AOR. So we're really fortunate in that regard. They've made significant investments in our tech stack. It's so interesting, guys. Like Fossil is ahead of the curve, no pun intended for curve, but it's very, very, very good to know. All right, time to get spicy. Who wants to get spicy? All right. Spicy question number one, crystal ball time. Tell me where Fossil is in 5 years. And if we're sitting here, what have you guys done to be leaders in the marketing and advertising game? Yeah, I think if we've done everything right, we'll be the preferred destination for vintage-inspired accessories. We'll have an even stronger data spine against which we'll plan all of our initiatives, and we will be driving record revenue. Sound like a true marketer. All right, last question, but a goodie. What would you tell a fresh grad who's graduating college, they're at Maryland or somewhere close, and they want to get into marketing. They want to be you in a few years. What would you tell them? How would
Thank you
coach?
for not dating me.
How would you, I'm smart. How would you coach them?
I think it's really important to be a hand raiser, figuratively and literally. I see a lot of fresh grads scared to ask questions because they don't want to not know something. But the truth is, this industry changes so quickly. You have to be brave enough to ask questions, or you'll be left behind. So I think asking questions at the right time is critically important. And I think being adaptable and being able to change quickly, adapt to change quickly, builds kind of that resilience muscle that's also really helpful in this industry and especially in this economy over the last 4 years, for sure.
And will you share this with Charlotte and Eleanor?
I will, absolutely.
Okay,
yes,
you
I
must.
this to my daughters.
You must. I want to thank Courtney for giving us some amazing insights this morning. We quiet? Oh, we do? Okay. Do we have any Q&A? Do we have any Q&A for Courtney?
Sorry. I think what's exciting in my role and something that I really enjoy digging into on the global stage is how different each of our brands operates or is positioned in every market. Taking, for instance, Fossil. In India, Fossil is a luxury brand. We have Bollywood celebrities that are clamoring to wear our products. Totally different than, what was it, a few months ago at either Emmys, Oscars, where an actor called out, like, they're up there wearing Rolex and we're down here wearing Fossil. You know, like it's a totally different perception of the brand depending on the country within which we operate. And so for me, that is really fun to kind of dial up or dial down different attributes and how we talk to our consumers in each country.
How many retail stores do you guys have right now?
I don't know that number.
Has anyone ever been to a Fossil retail store? Yeah, who still has a Fossil watch? That's great. So
how many people had their very first watch be their Fossil watch? Yes.
That's interesting. It feels like perception, right? It's just changing perception kind of one step at a time.
Yeah. And it's also just having an understanding of where you are in the marketplace. It's wonderful to be everybody's first watch and have that be like something that is really meaningful for you. It was certainly my first watch. And it's fun to see how the brand has evolved. Do
influencers really help in your strategy to get the word out there?
Absolutely. The borrowed equity from influencers has been core to that kind of go-to-market strategy specifically. And then again, depending on the brand that we're talking about, Michelle, for instance, we take a very different approach with influencers, and it's more of that like quiet luxury, lean in, if you know, you know, way to go to market.
And do you dip into sports at all?
We are starting to dip into sports, and we embrace that with the influencer strategy. So we had outfitted, dressed Lad
McConkey.
Yes. Thank you.
Fantasy football knowledge right there.
For the draft. And so that's another example of ways that we're kind of leaning into culturally relevant moments where we have kind of authority to participate. So, yeah.
That's really smart. I know Under Armour's here. They typically go with athletes kind of early in their careers and kind of grow with them. I think that was a smart move based on what I know about the fantasy football projections. So,
yes.
We have one over here too.
Yes,
Jeff,
what do you think is the biggest risk to your business?
Oh, well, traditional watches. I feel like whenever I say I work at Fossil Group, they're like, oh, the watches? Do people wear watches that aren't smart watches anymore? And I think, thankfully, again, maybe we'll all be saved by Gen Z, but they're really focused on unplugging, living in the moment, and focusing on time well spent and disconnecting from their wrist onward. And so for us, I kind of see that like groundswell of participation in that like analog environment as an opportunity, but it's also a risk. That's not for everybody.
We've got two more here. You had to say that previously. Go ahead.
Since Jay called me out, I had a. It was interesting how you brought up TikTok. I think it's important to a lot of brands out in the marketplace. I guess my question for you is, being there may be concerns about TikTok being around maybe in the future. Have you guys thought about that and what your strategic plans are if they aren't around? What you guys plan on doing?
Yeah, I think we don't spend a lot of time thinking about what would happen if TikTok is not around, because I think the social platforms come and go. Just as quickly as they rise, they can also they can also not be there. So for us, building our first party and zero party data has been a big part of that kind of centralized data strategy that we were talking about. And so TikTok may leave and influencers shift to spend more time on Instagram, or the attention goes elsewhere. I think the benefit of putting the consumer at everything, at your approach for everything that you do, means you're able to stay nimble.
As you're leaning into Gen Z, is this aspirational, or are you already seeing demand from Gen Z? Are you seeing them adapt to Fossil and creating the buzz within that generation?
Yeah, we are. It's a really it's a huge part of our current segment. And funny enough, Melanie was talking about the adding to cart and buying in store. We see a lot of, particularly Gen Z, pull up our social videos, our organic videos, or our influencer ads, and take them in store and say, I want this watch, I want to wear this watch ring, or I'm styling this together. And so it's interesting to understand how Gen Z is shopping, but it's not just aspirational for us. They're a core part of our current segment.
Just saying, you should add hot sauce to watches and put Jason Kelsey up there with a Fossil watch. That would be a nice opportunity. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Courtney.
Thank you.
Hey,
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.